Today's video will be on the anatomy of the .h and .m files. Okay, if you've noticed from our previous projects, we almost always have these .h and .m files, and they have a certain structure to them. So the goal of this video is to sort of explain what that structure means and what the .h and .m file is basically how it works. So I'm going to go back to our code. This is the project we have been working on the past couple of videos. And why don't we take a look at our viewcontroller.h file. The first line is this import statement, all right? And what that allows us to do is basically grab another class file and add that functionality to our code. If it's a built-in class file, you'll use these brackets here. Okay, but typically if you're doing it with a class you've created, for example, if I want to include appdelegate.h in mine, what I would do is not those brackets, but I would do this. Then I can use the functionality in appdelegate.h if I want to. Okay, so that's the first step. And the second step here is this @interface block. Now, what the @interface does is basically determines what is visible to an external, to another class that tries to execute this code. So I'm going to try to show you in this appdelegate.h file. As you can see, I've imported viewcontroller.h into my appdelegate.h. When I go to appdelegate.m, the first thing I did, and did finish launching with options, is I did viewcontroller vc alloc init. This gives me an object of type viewcontroller, basically, an object of that class. Okay, and from that we can use this object to execute methods and use properties of the viewcontroller class, right? But to access these methods, they first have to be declared in the interface. As you can see here, I declared something void method, and I have the code behind over here. This is in the M file. I have a method. But this line here, what this allows us to do is when I want to access that method, I say vc.method, or I can alternatively, you can do vc method, and this will not throw an error. It's not doing anything. But if I were to, for example, take this out of our interface and then go back to our M file, now it's going to give us two errors because it can't see the method unless you declare it in the interface. So that is the purpose of this block here, is that interface block. Now there's actually two blocks. There's one in the H file and there's one in the M file. Okay. Now typically, for example, here I have in the M file, I have a LBL first here, right? I declared an outlet in the M file interface, and if you try to access that here, it's going to throw an error because it can't see what's just in the M interface. But there's a couple ways around it. One, if I do this and I include the M file, then it will accept it. It should accept it. Did I get that included? I think it's included there. And then if I do this, vc.lbl first, now it works. Okay. If I don't include this, it will throw an error. Now it's an error. Okay. Typically, though, you will not include the M file. That's very rare. I've never seen it happen. So you're always going to almost always import the H file. And what you will use this block for is anything that's in the interface in this block can be executed in our own class file. So I can say self.lbl first here. But if it wasn't here, if this was commented out, this doesn't work. So that essentially allows us to sort of hide a little bit of our implementation from external classes that are only using the H file. Okay, and then the last part of any H&M file is this @implementation block, and this is really the meat of it. Basically, this is the code. This is where the code is. So if I declare my method in this H file up here, void method, and I can write some code in the method down here. I'm going to say nslog method it's not really doing anything, but what should happen here is it's going to write something into our terminal. You remember nslog from our last video. So now if I run this, because it activates as soon as it's launching, because I've used the appdelegate.m, so it's going to use this method as soon as it launches. And in our little terminal, let's see here, what do we got here? As you can see here, method executed. Obviously I have thrown a bug because, I messed with the, it's because here I got rid of this and it's not code value, key value compliant. It may work if I get rid of this outlet over here. Now it will work, I think. Let's see if this works. There you go. So now it's got method executed, method executed. And this is the reason why I print out twice is because there are two different ways of accessing a method. I'll cover this more later, but this way and this way, both will work. So that about wraps things up. The key is 1, include it over here. 2, have your method in the interface. And then 3, write your method code. Those are the 3 basic steps. And that's about all I wanted to cover. So this was the iOS tutorial on the